Okay, so let's move to this midsection here of the toolbox. I want to talk about edit, view, and select panels. First tool here is join. If you want to join two or more lines or surfaces, you can use that command. So let's create few lines first. Okay, so we have those two curves and this polyline. If you want to connect those into one continual line, you need to turn on object snap first and then snap those at those final endpoints like this. So only when you snap those at those endpoints, you can use this join command. If you try something like this will not work. Also, if you try to join them, let's say here, it will not work. Only if you use those final endpoints. Now you can select them, hit join, and Moy will create one continual line. If you want to separate this apart, you need to select this line, hit separate, and Moy will make all those parts again, and also this polyline will be broken into all those straight segments in that process. So make sure that you snap those at endpoints like this and not like that. That's how you use join and separate on 2D stuff. You can use them on 3D surfaces. Let's create a few surfaces really fast. But for surfaces also you need to make sure that all points on edges you want to connect are perfectly snapped to each other. So if you create two surfaces with loft command with those three curves, but don't bother with those construct commands right now. I just want to use that loft tool to create those two pieces. And because we created those with this line in between, this edge here is the same like this one. So if you bring those together like this, you have perfect snap in all points. And now you can select those two, hit join, and Moy will create one continual surface from those. So only in this case, when you have perfect snap in all those points along edges you want to connect, you can use this join operation. If you try to join two surfaces that have a small gap in between, so let's do that really quickly. So if I click and move this point here to create this small gap, even though we have points in this section that are snapped to each other and this end point here, if I try to join those two, this will not work. We still have two separate surfaces. So only when you have perfect snap you can use join command. So that's really important to note. Let's move to next tool here, which is called trim. With that one you can cut your lines or surfaces. Let's use one straight line and let's do one more curve like this. Let's move this here and one more like this. You can use trim tool in three different ways. In first case, you can select all those lines, hit trim, and Moy will ask you to select cutting objects or done for mutual trim. I will hit done because I want to use mutual trim in this first mode. And now again, Moy will ask me to select pieces to remove or push down to keep all. So I can select few of those pieces, and now if I hit done, Moy will delete those selected. But I want to keep all those pieces so you can see the difference between those two methods. So let's hit done. And now if I try to move those, I have all those segments separated. So in this first case with mutual trim, every line will cut each other. So you have all those pieces in one command. In the second case, you can select only, let's say, this curve, hit trim, and in this dialog box, when Moy asks you to select cutting objects or done for mutual trim, I will select those two as a cutting objects, hit done, and again I can select pieces to remove or push down to keep all. Let's just hit done button, and now only curve will be split like this, but those two lines that we used as a cutting object are intact, so they will be in one piece. So that's different method from this first one. And in third case, you can select only curve, hit trim, and you have this button here at trim points. If you click there, Moy will ask you to pick trim points on this curve. So you can click a few times like this and hit done, and Moy will cut this line in all those points. So let's hit done one more time. I want to keep all those pieces, and now I have this as a result. So you can use trim tool in all different ways. Also, you can use trim for cutting 3D meshes or surfaces. if you create a curve like this and you select this sphere and hit trim, let's use this curve as a cutting object and then hit done. Again, let's use done. I want to keep all those pieces. Now I have two separate pieces of that sphere. And it's important in which viewport you use this trim tool. If you go to top view, you can cut from above. So if you create a curve like this and then select all those, hit trim, let's use done for mutual trim in this case, and done one more time, you have all those separate pieces in that way. So you can cut your 3D meshes, but you need to make sure that you go to a specific viewport before you use this trim command. Okay, so next tool is extend. With that one, you can extend your lines to specific elements. So let's create one polyline, one line like this, and let's do one more curve like that. So if you want to extend all those lines to this curve, you can select them like this, hit extend button, and Moy will ask you to select boundary objects. I can use one or multiple boundary objects, and I will use this curve and then hit done, and Moy will extend all those lines to this curve. So that can be handy if you have something like that in your scene. Okay, so let's move to next one, which is called show points. If you create those 2D primitives, let's say we have this polyline, you see those points visible in this first step when you create this straight segments, but when you hit done or right click to finish, Moy will hide those control points. Also, that's the same for, let's say, this curve. You see all those control points in this first step, and when you hit done or right click, Moy will hide all those points. If you want to bring them back, you need to select lines you want to toggle for visibility with this show points button, and then click here, and now you can move all those points to redefine the shape for those lines. You can select multiple points like this and move them together. You can hit delete key on your keyboard if you want to delete them. And also you have this button here which is called add point. With that one you can add points on those curves, on those lines, sorry. And also it's different when you add points on curve itself like this. You see that curve will stay the same, but Moy will rebuild it with a bigger number of those control points. So if you click here, Moy will rebuild that curve and you have one more control point in that section. But if you add points on those straight segments like this, you can change the shape for the curve and you have this as a result. So you can make it more closer to, let's say, polyline in that way. So that's how you use show points and add point button. And if you want to hide those, you just need to click here one more time, so you can toggle visibility on or off. Okay, so let's move to next tool here, which is called copy and paste. If you want to copy your elements, you can use this button here, or you can use Windows shortcut Control-C for copy and also Control-V for paste. You need to select this, hit copy, move it here, hit paste, and Moy will create identical copy of that curve. So that's super basic stuff. If you want to create multiple copies really fast, you need to hold Control key and then move this line, and every time you move, Moy will create one copy for that curve. So you need to hold Control key on your keyboard for that. Let's move to next one, which is called hide. You can hide your elements. You need to select them, hit this hide button, and Moy will make them invisible. If you want to bring them back, make sure that nothing is selected, so you can click on canvas to deselect everything, hit hide, and Moy will make those visible again. So you can click on this one, hit hide, use this one, hit hide, make sure that nothing is selected, and if you hit hide once more, Moy will bring those two together, so you can hide your elements. Also, lock will work in the same way. You can select those two, hit lock, Moy will make them in this red color, and this is indication that those two are now locked. You cannot select them anymore or move them, but if you turn on object snap, you can use them for snapping. So you can use those as a guideline in that way. And if you want to unlock those, just make sure that nothing is selected and then hit the lock button again. So that's how you use hide and lock. Next tool here is history. We have history on few of those construct operations, like for example on this loft tool. So if we create a surface with this loft command, let's do one more with those two curves. Let's select those and I will hit loft, and then I want to use this normal mode. So now, because we have history turned on by default, if I make modifications to those two curves, I can turn on those control points and then move those points. You see that also this surface will auto update. So every time you make some modifications like this surface will also update, and you see a live preview for the effect. And that's possible because we have history enabled on this one. If you want to disable history, you can either move this surface here. Let's go back. I accidentally select this point. So you can either move it here, and then all those modifications on those curves will not be visible on this surface. Or if you want to stay here in this position, you can select this surface and then go to history, and you have this button disable update. And in that way, if you change those curves now, nothing will happen to this surface. So that's how you disable updates on your 3D surfaces. Let's delete all that. Let's move to next tool here in this view panel, which is called reset all. With that one, you can reset all cameras to default state. You just need to click here, and Moy will bring all cameras to their default state. Next button here is image. With that one, you can add image plane. You have this add button. Let's say I want to add this rifle image. I can use that for tracing. I can scale it, move it, rotate it, and so on. I can edit transparency here. Let's use 80%. You can align it with this one, remove it here, hide and show here. You can draw it below objects, with objects, or above objects. And let's show that effect right now. So right now it is below my objects. If we change that to with objects, I see this grid line, but if we go to front view and move one object here and one here, one of those will be on this front side and one will be at back side. So if I go to right view, this will be in back plane compared to this image plane, and this will be in front. So you can do that, but I almost never use that feature. I almost always use below objects or above if I want to see it like this. So now if I hit done, I can select those. Let's delete those. I can use that for tracing. I can go like this and trace some of those elements here and so on. So you can use that if you want to trace some sketch or some drawing you have. So that's how you use image tool. Also, you can show it in all views. You can go in orthographic views only, and that will make it visible only in those orthographic views. Here it will be invisible, or you can have it visible in all viewports like this. And when you hit done, Moy will lock that image, so you cannot select it until you go to this image button again, and now you can do your modifications. Let's remove this one with remove button and hit done. Let's move to another tool here, which is called C-plane. With that one, you can change orientation for this grid plane. So if we create a box, and let's rotate this at some specific angle. So now if I want to align this grid lines to this face here, I can use this C-plane button. Moy will ask me to pick C-plane origin, so I can place this origin point on my object. So I need to use object snap, and then I can snap this origin point to this center point of this face like this. And now if I hit done, Moi will align this grid line to that face. So now all my drawings will be aligned to that specific face. And that will save you a lot of time. You don't need to create your drawings on the grid and then rotate them toward this face. You can align grid to that face and do all drawings automatically aligned like this. So that's super handy. And if you want to reset this grid lines again, you need to go to C-plane and hit reset C-plane button. So now it will be back to its default state. So that's how you use C-plane option. And we have 3 more options under select panel. Let's create a few elements here. Okay, so if you want to select everything in your scene, you have this select all button. So if you click there, Moi will select everything like this. If you click on canvas, you can deselect everything, or you can hit this deselect all like this. And you have also invert selection if you want to inverse your selection like this. So that's how you use all those tools in this midsection here. Let's now continue with this construct panel.